Hi, welcome to your final lesson for A Wrinkle in Time. Last time we left off just before we filled in the blanks for resolution. Before we go to our notebook, to our notes, I want to take a look in our notebook. So at the beginning of chapter 12, we read about the climax, and we just finished reading the climax, the highest point of interest and that turning point for Meg. You should have finished that answer. We still have 2 boxes left with our plot structure, and we're going to cover both of these in the last 2.5 pages of our book. That's all that's left. So first of all, falling action is not in our notes. And I mentioned to you that the falling action and the rising action, although they show the same size boxes in our plot pyramid, they are not equal in the novel. Since the majority of our novel was the rising action, chapters 4 through 11 pretty much, and then we get maybe a paragraph or so of falling action. So just a reminder of our definition for falling action: they are events that follow the climax and lead to the resolution. So just a little bit of information. The resolution, I want to remind you, we had 4 bullets of what we wrote down for resolution. We have end of the story, loose ends tied up, questions answered, and conflicts resolved. And that's the big part of it, is that the conflicts throughout the book have now been resolved. So let's take a look at the fill in the blank notes that look a little bit different than what we had put in our notebook. We're going to fill those in, and then we have a few pages to read before you answer the resolution. All right, so on your screen, you have the blanks. Resolution, the part of the story where the blank is blank and all blank are tied up. So the part of the story where the conflict is solved and all loose ends are tied up. Okay, so on the first blank, you're going to make sure that you highlight that, and then you are going to type in conflict, and then we have solved, and I'm going to type in loose. How do you spell loose? People tend to confuse loose and lose. Loose has 2 O's. Loose ends are tied up. Make sure you fill in those blanks. I'm going to make sure it's not on your answer sheet this time, so you need to have those in there for credit today. All right, let's look at the question before we finish the novel together. Describe the resolution of the story. So how is the central conflict resolved? We talked about this at the beginning of the novel. Throughout the exposition of the novel, we are introduced to these small little details about father is missing. Why is father missing? And then in chapter 3, we get the main reasons as to why he's missing. And then our central conflict all revolves around trying to rescue father. And although they do kind of rescue him in one part, and sometimes people want to say, oh, that's the resolution, it's not truly, because then they still have the conflict on Camazotz. So the central conflict does revolve around rescuing both father and Charles Wallace from Camazotz, from this evil, dark thing as it. So we're going to read, we're going to find out what happened, and you need to include how that is resolved in your answer once we finish the book. All right, if you are in the black book, we left off on page 230. We're about halfway down. If you are in the yellow book, we left off on page 209, just after the top. So I believe I did read the paragraph about her feeling the earth beneath her, and Charles Wallace had just cried out, "Meg, oh Meg." Now she was hugging him close to her, and his little arms were clasped tightly around her neck. "Meg, you saved me! You saved me!" he said over and over. "Meg," came a call, and there were her father and Kelvin hurrying through the darkness toward them. Still holding Charles, she struggled to stand up and look around. "Father, Cal, where are we?" Charles Wallace, holding her tightly, was looking around too, and suddenly he laughed his own sweet, contagious laugh. In the twins' vegetable garden, and we landed in the broccoli. Meg laughed, or began to laugh too, at the same time that she was trying to hug her father, to hug Calvin, and not to let go of Charles Wallace for 1 second. Meg, you did it, Calvin shouted. You saved Charles. I'm very proud of you, my daughter. Mr. Murray kissed her gravely, then turned toward the house. Now, I must go in to Mother. Meg could tell that he was trying to control his anxiety and his eagerness. Look, she pointed to the house, and there were the twins and Mrs. Murray walking toward them through the long, wet grass. First thing tomorrow, I must get some new glasses, Mr. Murray said, squinting in the moonlight, and then starting to run toward his wife. Denny's voice came crossly over the lawn. Hey, Meg, it's bedtime. Sandy suddenly yelled, Father! Mr. Murray was running across the lawn, Mrs. Murray running toward him, and they were in each other's arms, and then there was a tremendous happy jumble of arms and legs and hugging. The older Murrays and Meg and Charles Wallace and the twins and Calvin grinning by them until Meg reached out and pulled him in, and Mrs. Murray gave him a special hug all of his own. They were talking and laughing all at once when they were startled by a crash, and Fortinbras, who could bear being left out of the happiness not 1 second longer, catapulted his sleek black body right through the screen door to the kitchen. He dashed across the lawn to join in the joy and almost knocked them all over with the exuberance of his greeting. Meg knew all at once that Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which must be near, because all through her she felt a flooding of joy and of love that was even greater and deeper than the joy and love which were already there. She stopped laughing and listened, and Charles listened too. Hush. Then there was a whirring, and Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which were standing in front of them, and the joy and love were so tangible that Meg felt that if she only knew where to reach, she could touch it with her bare hands. Mrs. Whatsit said breathlessly, Oh, my darlings, I'm sorry we don't have time to say goodbye to you properly. You see, we have to... But they never learned what it was that Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which had to do, for there was a gust of wind, and they were gone. And that is the end of the book. How was the conflict solved? How was it resolved? How were all the loose ends tied up? Make sure you answer that last question and be prepared for your quiz when I see you in school next.